This is yours? Okay.
Where'd it go? Oh, there it is.
She said no good. Break and play. We can still say Shabbat Shalom because it's still Shabbat, so Shabbat Shalom. Soon to be Chag Sameach as we welcome the holiday of Shavuot in our midst this very evening and celebrate our confirmation. Behind me are our three young women who have completed the confirmation program this year. Elena Sinfuegos, who just became bat mitzvah last week, so she's an old hand at leading worship services. Lila Fenton-Strauss and Hannah Green stand before us today to become a member of our congregation in a variety of ways as young adults and as confirmands of this congregation. They have participated and helped create our service this evening. They will be sharing reflections about prayers. They will be sharing reflections about what it means to be a Jew. These are interspersed throughout the service. Most of the service text you will find on the screen in front of you. The Torah service, however, will be from our prayer books, and then we will conclude back with the screen. So we'll kind of be doing a little bit of back and forth. Our students are going to lead us in our service, are going to read and chant from not just any Torah, but on this evening they will be reading and chanting from our orphan Torah. We don't have the opportunity to use that Torah during the year. Many of the sections, unfortunately, are very difficult to read because of its age, because it was stored in a warehouse and for many years not taken care of. And so the portion for tonight, the Seret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, however, is one of the sections that is quite legible. And so we are actually going to give life to that community in Bavaria who perished during the Holocaust during our confirmation service this evening. Let's make sure our cell phones are switched to the off or the silent position so that we might share this service without interruption from the outside world. As I fumble around for mine too. Good. One moment while I convince all of our technology to work appropriately for us tonight. As we prepare to say goodbye to Shabbat and hello to the holiday of Shavuot, let's do it with joyous song and singing. Hava Nashira is our opportunity to welcome this time with a great Hebrew word that has worked its way through many, many cultures. Hallelujah. Hava Nashira, let us sing a song of praise. Hallelujah. Hava Nashira.
nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava.
With that, we turn to the ceremony of Havdalah, and I invite our confirmands to lead us in a reading before we get into the Havdalah ceremony.
Havdalah is not for the close of Shabbat and festivals alone. It is for all the holy days. Havdalah means separate yourself from the unholy, strive for holiness.
We read together.
Havdalah means separate yourself from fraud and exploitation, be fair and honest with all people.
Havdalah means separate yourself from indifference to the poor and the deprived, the sick and the aged, work to ease their despair and their loneliness.
Havdalah means separate yourself from hatred and violence, promote peace among peoples and nations.
Through God's teachings, may we find understanding to reject the unholy and to choose the way of holiness.
May God, who empowers us to distinguish between the holy from the profane, inspire us to perform these acts of Havdalah.
Shabbat is like a dear friend that has come to spend time with us. And just as we welcome Shabbat with wine, with candles, when Shabbat leaves, we say goodbye to Shabbat with wine and candles and a spice box. Just as a friend comes to visit with us, we greet them and welcome them excitedly. And when our friend goes to depart, we show them to the door. We wave them off. And we express our hope at being able to see them once again. And that's what these symbols represent. The Kiddush wine represents the joy that we shared in presence of our friend, Shabbat. These spices, just like the presence of our friend, reminds us of the sweetness, the fragrance, that extra zip we had when we were together with our friend. And the braided candle reminds us of how our lives are all intertwined. According to Jewish tradition, light was the first thing that God taught Adam and Eve. Fire was the first thing that God taught Adam and Eve, who were, according to Jewish tradition, created 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. As the sun was setting, as the temperature was dropping, as darkness was setting in, Adam and Eve, according to the Midrash, were frightened and afraid. Unlike the Greek tradition of having to steal the fire from the gods, God taught Adam and Eve how to make fire, to keep warm, and to bring light. And that's what we do with our Havdalah as well. We welcome and say goodbye to Shabbat with light. Lighting of this candle is the first act of our work week. And with that, we begin with Havdalah.
La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samim borei minei v'samim amen la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei ha'esh borei meorei ha'esh.
We give thanks to the one who makes distinctions, teaching us to transform the commonplace into the holy, creating light and darkness, Israel and the nations, the seventh day of rest and the 6 days of labor. Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol.
Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, chatoteinu yimchol, zar'enu v'chaspenu yarbe kachol, v'hakochavim balayla. Shavua tov, 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 Shavua tov. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu hagiladi, bimhera b'yameinu yavo eleinu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David, Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu hagiladi.
And on this particular Shabbat, it is a separation between holy and mundane, yes, but also holy and holy as we welcome the holiday of Shavuot. Ladies, I invite you to continue with our service.
Help me perfect my ways of loving and caring. Inspire me to make myself whole, so that I may honor your name and create a world of justice and peace.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives.
Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their heart. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
May these festival lights open our eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, this heritage of celebration that unites us as a people.
Ladies, let's come stand up.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Yom Tov. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, source of all being, who calls us to holy acts through mitzvot, and inspires us to kindle the light of this festival.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov.
The commandment to bless this wine is a commandment to drink life as deeply as we drink from this cup. It is a commandment to bless life and to love deeply. It is a commandment to remember our relationship with God, to join with God as partners in the process of creation, so that by our words, our deeds, our examples, we might create worlds within others.
It is a commandment to laugh until we are all laughter, to sing until we are all song, to dance until we are all dance, to love until we are all love.
Let us praise God with this symbol of joy, the fruit of the vine, and give thanks for the gift of life. May our observance on this day fill us with eagerness to embrace life and to sanctify it.
I'll take a step back. Nope, that's yours. Crunches, what are they called? What is it, Deborah? What is it? Squats, yeah. I'm doing my kiddish squats here.
Thank you, Rav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romemanu mikol lashon v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav. Vatiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ahava modeim l'simcha chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag HaShavuot hazeh zman matan toratenu mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim kivana v'charta ve'otanu kiddashta mikol ha'amim u'modei kodshecha b'simcha u'b'sason hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazamanim.
But wait a minute. As we have gathered for the first time to welcome Shavuot since last year, since we have gathered to celebrate Havdalah since last Shabbat, and since we are gathering to celebrate with our confirmands, the Shehachianu is in order.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achayanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achayanu v'kimanu v'higianu Lazman
L'chaim. continue. Have a seat. Yeah, Hannah Green, you're up. Yeah.
At this point in my life, I affirm the following about my being Jewish. What does Judaism mean to you? The hardest, most complex, stressful question ever posed to me. I was born Jewish, and I know nothing different. My parents have raised me with Jewish ideals, and for the past 16 years, I've done my best to uphold them. If I'll be honest, I never truly felt connected to Judaism during my young life. Yes, I woke up at 9:15 every Sunday morning to be here by 9:30 for religious school. Yes, I gave up my Wednesday afternoons to learn Hebrew with Cantor Ariel and my classmates every week. Yes, I always attended my religious school classes Friday night service each year. And yes, I certainly enjoyed celebrating each holiday. Even though it was never forced upon me, I was never excited to do these things. Quite honestly, it felt like a chore. I was missing that personal connection to God and to Judaism that would make me eager to learn, to spend time at the temple and with the Jewish community that I'm so lucky to have. Even now, I have times when I question my connection to God because it feels fake, like I'm required to have this connection, and it's not what I genuinely feel. That this so-called personal connection to God was solely created on the basis of what my family believed or what my teachers had taught. What I had yet to understand about Judaism is that it is more than just going to temple and considering myself a Jew. Judaism is more than a religion. It is a culture and a very large part of my identity that has exposed me to new people, ideas, and ways of viewing the world and its inhabitants. The most essential aspect of Judaism to me is the ability to develop your own unique connection to God, however it best fits into your life. My favorite part about being Jewish is that I am not forced into believing things that I disagree with or things that I do not like. Take bagels and lox for an example, a signature Jewish dish. I, for one, hate all seafood, no matter what kind it is. However, I love all types of bagels. My brother will eat anything. Lox, no lox, extra lox, you name it. I think he is disgusting and crazy for ruining a perfect bagel with the presence of something that used to swim in the ocean, but who am I to judge what he likes? It's his life, so it makes no difference whatsoever to me. As absurd as it may seem, this same connection can be connected back to Judaism. My personal view of God could potentially be highly different from your view. The amazing thing about Judaism is that these differences are allowed and even encouraged. We all have our own view of God and our own opinion of what role God plays in our life. During the beginning of our confirmation meetings with the rabbi, we were given a paper with the most common ways rabbis have interpreted God's existence and intervention with a person's life. I believe there are 5 main views, however, I only personally connected to one. This one being God as the process of reaching our potential. God is the highest ideal for which people strive. God is the urge that impels us to be the best person we can be, to fully realize ourselves and our potential. As a Jew, I believe that God has no physical influence on my life and that it is up to myself and humanity to uphold and sustain the world that was created. For most of my life, I grew up with an idea of an omniscient God, a God that will judge, alter, and observe every one of our actions. As I continued my Jewish studies, I quickly learned that my understanding of God is not an omniscient being. I have complete control over my life, and my actions are not altered or judged by God. In my life, I am grateful for this free will. I am grateful that my actions will generally not be held against me so long as I obey the 10 Commandments and refrain from committing any major sins. As a Reformed Jew, I am not obligated to attend every Shabbat service. I am not obligated to keep kosher daily or follow every single rule set forth by our rabbis. I am not obligated to be perfect. However, I am obligated to uphold the 10 Commandments and strive to be the best version of myself possible. The concept of being the best version of yourself is so subjective that it can seem almost impossible. You do not need to find the cure for cancer, solve world hunger, or be the reason we have world peace to be your best you. Judaism teaches us that through simple acts of mitzvot, we are already fulfilling our jobs of striving to be our greatest selves. I remember during my 6th grade Sunday school year, Miss Horowitz would encourage my class to bring tzedakah every week and share one positive thing we did for our community. She would never ask too much from us. A quarter was the most she would ever request, and our helpful act for the community could be walking our own dog or even just doing the dishes. Although many of these actions were already integrated into our everyday lives, they were still acts of mitzvot. I was taught that even the smallest acts can make a big difference in not only my life, but the lives of other people as well. Ever since then, I have always tried to do the little things. I always try my best to be polite, to help others when they need it, and to ensure my community continues to be shaped into a positive atmosphere. These only make up a very small fraction of what I do to push myself to be my best me. As I stand before you tonight, I confirm that I am a proud Jew. I am proud of my people, my history, and my future as a Jewish woman. I am proud of my fellow confirmands, and I cannot wait to see where our lives take us. I am proud of everyone who is brave enough to call themselves a Jew, because God knows that is not an easy task. Most importantly, I am proud of myself for never losing sight of my relationship with Judaism, no matter how foggy the road became.
Now summer's prospect, the world ripening and growing softer, the promise of harvest fulfilled. The warming sun lies before us. Now the vision of the Torah. The world at peace and growing gentler, the promise of goodness fulfilled. The loving heart lies open to the mind.
There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings a song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nevarech, let us bless.
My turn. In a moment, not yet. Okay. In a moment, we will continue with a prayer known as the Baruch, the call to worship. The Baruch, as Cantor Ken puts it, is holy roll call. The entire purpose of the prayer is to see if we have 10 people, a minyan. It may seem silly to have 10 people for formal prayer, but this rule isn't for all prayers. It's like how you can still play the game Splatoon by yourself, but the real part of the game comes from playing with other people. Prayer is a communal thing, where everyone comes together to praise God and unwind. So, it's important to make sure there is enough people, so everyone can participate. It can be friends, family, or even strangers. It's just important to include everyone.
I invite us to rise as we are able, as we continue with our call to worship, the Baruch.
La 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 Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, u'bitvunah mishaneh itim, u'mahalif et hazmanim, u'msader et hakohavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtsono, b'rei yom v'layla, goel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Umahavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yon uvein laila, Adonai Sebaot Shemo. El Hai Vikayam, Tamid Yinloch Alenu Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hamariv Arvim.
How do we find God? We find God revealed in the order of the physical universe, in the compassion of the human heart, and in the guiding wisdom of the Torah.
Sinai was only the beginning. The Torah has never ceased to grow. In every age, it has been purified and enlarged. It has a permanent core and an expanding periphery. It expands as the horizon of our vision grows. Nor are God's revelations confined to Israel. God has been the inspiration of the great and good among all families of the earth. God's love and guidance reach out to all the world.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I read a lot of books about Jews.
Sorry, we may be seated.
Oh, oops.
No, it's not your fault.
Okay. I read a lot of books about Jews. Children's books, grown-up books, historical books, theological books, and storybooks. But my most favorite is The Heretic. For those unaware, The Heretic is a historical fictional novel of a family of conversos, descendants of Jews who were forced to convert to Christianity in Spain, and them trying to return to their culture by printing Hebrew prayer books. Spoiler alerting for how the book ends. In the beginning and end of the book, the Shema is said by a character before their death. It is used as a statement of martyrdom, of dying a Jew. The Shema is one of the shortest prayers, but it says so much. It says, "There is one God. It is my God. It is my God alone. I stand by my God," and all the emotions of either comfort and peace or defiance by refusing to disappear that come with these statements.
We rise as we are able.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
We may be seated.
Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha v'chayu hadarim ha'ele asher anoki metzavecha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha, vedivartam, Beshivtecha v'veitecha, u'leftecha v'derek, Ushotecha uvkumecha, Ushatam leot aliyateha, V'chayu letotafot beineha, Uchtavtam amizot beiteha, Uvishareha, Leman tiskerut, Vasitem et kol mitzvotai, V'yitem kedoshim leloheim. Ani Adonai Eloheim, Asher hoseiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Eloheim.
Doubting is but the forefront of faith. A faith in the infinite growth of an unbounded creation. A doubting age is one of restlessness and discontent with what is current. A doubt is an idea that is still alive. To doubt that the past has uncovered all things is to express faith that many things are still to be uncovered. To doubt that we have grown to our full stature and knowledge is to express faith that we may develop into beings of such power and dignity that we cannot as yet imagine what shall be.
And on Shavuot, we will hear a melody which is part of an Aramaic, it's a melody used for a long, very long Aramaic poem sung on Shavuot, and the melody is known by congregations around the world, Ashkenazi congregations. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, malechutecha rahuvanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeili anu ve'am Meru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed.
Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. May this night spread over us a canopy of calm, lifted by the blessing of rest. There will come a time when the morning will bring no word of war, famine, or anguish. There will come a dawn to rejoice in the peace of mind, heart, and being. Praised are you, the source of renewal within us, for the night's rest and for the promise of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, haparei sukkah shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, va'al Yerushalayim.
Let us praise Adonai, source of knowledge and light, from whom we draw wisdom and insight. Let us savor the fullness of each and every day and fill our souls with the treasures of our heritage.
And let us appreciate these distinctions: sacred from profane, charity from greed, purpose from drift. Let us affirm our covenant as God's people. Let us honor those who study Torah. Let us uphold the truth of ongoing revelation. Let us celebrate the glory of our tradition and draw refreshment from the wellsprings of prayer.
Let us respect tradition and encourage creative faith. And let us dress ourselves in the garments of God, compassion for the needy, embrace of the stranger, and then spread the canopy of peace over all the world. The Avot v'Imahot literally translates to fathers and mothers. Everyone who is a part of the Jewish community, whether it be literally or emotionally, are connected through the 7 names of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Our rich and extensive history is what connects all of us and unites the Jewish community. After reviewing and preparing to write an introduction for the Avot V'Imahot, I realized that this prayer teaches seemingly two contradicting ideas. The prayer opens with the statement, "Blessed are you, Adonai our God, and God of our ancestors." We are taught that the God we pray to is the same one our ancestors prayed to centuries ago. The prayer then goes on to recite, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and God of Sarah, and so on, contrarily suggesting that we all pray to a different God. Although this definitely seemed like two opposite ideas to me at first, after looking closer, I realized that they can actually go hand in hand. One of the greatest fundamentals of Judaism is the fact that there is only one God, but at the same time, Judaism also acknowledges that everyone's perception of God differs. As Jews, we are encouraged to individually find the role we believe God plays in our lives and what that means to us personally. There is no one definition of God that is assigned to us. Instead, over the course of our lives, it is up to us to choose the role we believe God plays. Please rise as you are able for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agite hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Hasei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayeh hakol atah, Rav le'oshia, moriv hatal, mechakel chayim bechesed, mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim berofei holim, umatir asurim, umekayeh enunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'geburot, umido mehelah, melech limi tu behayeh, umasmiach Yeshua, be'eman atah lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, halu haselah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Prayer is not purely an act. All things pray, and all things pour forth their souls. The heavens pray, the earths pray, every creature and every living thing. In all life there is longing. Creation is itself but a longing, a kind of prayer to the Almighty. What are the clouds, the rising and the setting of the sun, the soft radiance of the moon, and the gentleness of the night? What are the flashes of the human mind and the storms of the human heart? They are all prayers, the wordless outpouring of boundless longing for God. Praise the light that shines before us, through us, after us. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated.
Putting into words what it means for me to be Jewish felt like such a daunting and impossible task. I am not a huge procrastinator, but I put this off longer than I would like to admit. Judaism has always been such a huge part of my life. Yet, before I was asked to, I never took the time to really ask myself what being Jewish meant to me. I was always taught to take pride in Judaism and encouraged to crave to learn about and embrace not just the religion, but also the culture. Throughout my time in religious school, I've been taught the major values that Judaism teaches: the 10 Commandments and doing mitzvot, the importance of always questioning ideas, acknowledging our wrongdoings so we won't repeat them, and doing what we can for those less fortunate. But after thinking about why I personally feel proud to be Jewish, I realized much of it stems from the connection I have always felt to my past. It has always fascinated me thinking about the hundreds of thousands of people and millions of seemingly insignificant events that had to happen, not only so that I would exist, but so I would be here in this exact moment, right here with all of you. Every person who came before me has ensured my existence and has affected my life. This extensive history that I'm a part of goes back centuries and is what I value the most in Judaism. Listening to my father retell the story of my great aunt who claimed she used her good looks to convince the Vice President Nixon at the time to help her crook of a husband out of jail, hearing my grandmother tell me about how her father was able to take care of his younger siblings while living in an orphanage during the Great Depression, learning about my grandfather's bizarre story of how he got to be the president of his law firm from a conversation in a urinal, or reading my grandmother's book based on our family's history of being seamstresses to the royal family. All of these stories are what make me feel Jewish. These stories have been ingrained in the culture of my family. They are the stories that are told over and over again to guests when we are sitting around the kitchen table, and are just a handful of examples of accounts from my family that I will definitely never forget. My family's history, and by extension, my history, is full of perseverance, endurance, tenacity, and of course, an endless amount of absurd humor. Because if there is one thing Jews do best, it is finding the absurdity in even the most despairing of situations. Most of my great-grandparents grew up in Eastern Europe at a time when anti-Semitism was very much present. Pogroms and anti-Semitic rhetoric was the norm for Jews living in Europe during the early 1900s. They felt out of place and were constantly living in fear for their lives and for the lives of their children. Many moved here in hopes of finding a better place to live, one where they wouldn't have to constantly cower in fear from the horrific violence. Some even tried to assimilate in order to protect their family from the discrimination and anti-Semitism that they experienced. But they never forgot where they came from and made sure to pass down their stories and their Judaism to their children. They maintained the pride that they felt for their past and always found room for new memories and new stories. Being Jewish makes up who I am, and without my ancestors' willingness and courage to hold on to their religion, I would not be who I am today. Feeling connected to my history gives me a sense of being a part of something much larger than myself. I come from an amazing group of people who gave me my Judaism and passed along their stories. I am made up of everyone who came before me. Their stories are my stories too. Every Passover, when we retell the story of the Jews' exodus from Egypt, we each say the words, "I was redeemed from Egypt." Although we were obviously not in Egypt thousands of years ago, it is not enough to tell the story of their salvation. We come from them, and therefore we were also slaves in Egypt. We as Jews recognized we are made up of our history. These accounts that have been told for thousands of years are what make us such a strong and mighty people. I carry everyone who came before me beside me with the decisions I make, my values, and who I will eventually become. All of our families have persevered through so much and have continued passing on their Jewish heritage successfully. Jews as a people share the same trait of constant determination and endurance, even when the whole world seems against us. And let's face it, history has not always been kind to us. My ancestors had the hard part of actually surviving. They continue to have the bravery and strength to not give up their religious beliefs and their culture. I now have the easy job of making sure their memories and stories are not lost. For the rest of my journey as a Jew, I will always remember and carry the stories of my family with me, and will continue creating more stories made of the same bravery and determination of their past.
Our ancestors chose to worship you in love and favor, and inspired us to make our lives holy through your mitzvot and drawing us close to your service, that through us your great and holy name may be known in all of earth. In your love, Adonai, our God, you have given us feasts of gladness and seasons of joy. This season of receiving Torah to unite in worship and recall the exodus from Egypt.
One does not travel to Jerusalem, one returns. One ascends the road taken by generations, the path of longing on the way to redemption. One brings rucksacks stuffed with memories to each mountain and each hill. In the cobbled white alleyways, one offers a blessing for memories of the past which have been renewed. One does not travel to Jerusalem, one returns.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu. Many generations later, redeemed from slavery, Abraham and Sarah's descendants stood at Mount Sinai. The ancient promise was to be confirmed, the ancient mandate reasserted and enlarged, the ancient covenant renewed and sealed to bind all future generations. When God revealed the Torah, no bird chirped, no fowl beat its wings, no ox bellowed. The angels did not sing, the sea did not stir, no creature uttered a sound. The world was silent and still, and the divine voice spoke, I, the Eternal, am your God.
Zochrenu Adonai Eloheinu, Bo L'Tova, Amen. This day remember us for well-being. Amen.
Amen.
Ufogdenu vo livracha. Amen. This day bless us with your nearness. Amen.
V'hosianu vo lehayim. Amen. This day hosts us to a fuller life. Amen. We continue responsively. Let standing corn grow ripe, as the dewdrops spring their blessings, food for the hungry, healing for the sick.
Let the bare vines be draped with grape blossoms, as the heavens yield their dew.
Let oases drip with plenty, and hills be draped with gladness, dressed with flowers in the colors of spring.
Singing your great goodness, as the heavens yield their dew.
Let the trees God made be fed on valley and hill. May granaries be filled with grain, the vats with wine and oil.
Let every village be joyous and safe, as the heavens yield their dew.
Let those who spend themselves in the study of our fates shine as bright as stars.
You feed the hungry soul, the dry and empty heart, and fill it with delight, as the heavens yield their dew.
Send your sweet breeze to renew our life, to restore it to its ancient glory, the land of our heritage.
You who are good to all, let the time of redemption come and renew our life.
Our God and God of ancestors, as dew descends,
Let light illumine the earth, let blessing restore the earth, let joy and gladness abound on the earth, let song resound on the earth, and the goodness and sustenance deliver us on earth.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh Yisrael v'hozmanim.
Know this, that each and every shepherd has a unique melody of his own. Know this, that every blade of grass has a unique song of his own. And from the song of the grass comes the melody of the shepherd.
How beautiful is and pleasant it is when one hears their song. It is very good to pray among them, and enjoy serve the ineffable. From the song of the grass, the heart becomes filled with longing.
And when the heart is filled with song and with longing for Eretz Yisrael, a great light goes forth from the holiness of the land upon it. And from the song of the grass comes the melody of the heart. Baruch atah Adonai, hamahazir shechinato l'tzion.
I thank you, O God, for this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and love and wings, and of the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any, lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being doubt unimaginably you. Now the ears of my ears are awake, now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ucha na'eh lehodot.
We continue responsively. You called us to peace, for you are peace.
Grant us the vision to realize these aims.
Where there are ignorance and superstition,
Let there be enlightenment and knowledge.
where there are prejudice and hatred,
Let there be acceptance and love.
where there are fear and suspicion,
Let there be confidence and trust.
where there are tyranny and oppression,
Let there be freedom and justice.
where there are poverty and disease,
Let there be prosperity and health.
where there are strife and discord.
Let there be harmony and peace.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. Growing up with a Jewish mother who is very big on treating others the way you want to be treated, I have been taught from a very young age to always show peace towards others. For the past 16 years, I've done my best to fulfill her request, and I believe I've been pretty successful. However, as a new driver, I have started to find it harder and harder to be peaceful towards everyone. I come from a family that has a history of developing a small case of road rage. But despite the really awful drivers on the road, I do not believe my little flares of fury will ever go so far as to develop into any sort of road rage. Instead, I have learned to take my occasional anger and somehow diffuse it. Most of the time, I give the other driver the benefit of the doubt and assume they are just in a really big rush. The ability to convert anger, if learned correctly, is a skill that can be beneficial for everyone. In Judaism, peace is a key principle. Peace between man and God, peace between nations, internal peace, and so forth. Because peace is a main belief, many Jewish prayers tend to revolve around this concept. However, the Shalom Rav was specifically designed to give us the opportunity to ask God to grant peace. However, God can never truly intervene in a person's life, making it seemingly impossible for God to be capable of granting peace. We need to somehow impose peace within ourselves first. The word Shalom Rav literally translates to abundant peace, giving us no limitations on what type of peace we want to pray for.
Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam, V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael, B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam, Shalom Rav, Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amecha, Tasim Leolam, Tasim Leolam.
Throughout the majority of the worship service, prayer is done with the congregation. The silent prayer is the exception, and for some, it can serve as a time when they feel the most connected to God. The silent prayer serves as a time for individual reflection, and for many of us, it is one of the only times throughout the day we can sit in real silence. Those who feel inspired to do so use the time to internalize the words that are said throughout the service and assess ways to implement them into their own lives. And for others, use it as a time to quiet their minds and pause the fast-paced lives that most of us have been accustomed to. Although it is important to engage and immerse ourselves within the community, it is equally necessary to individually reflect. As Jews, we are always encouraged to find meaning independently and consider our own view of certain prayers, holidays, as well as the words given to us in the prayer books. But the silent prayer is a specific time set aside to, as a community, individually reflect. There is no pressure or expectation during this prayer. It's up to the individual to decide how they want to utilize the silence and what they want to take away from the service as a whole. So now, I encourage you to use this time in whatever way that you see fit.
Ose shalom bimromav hu ya'ase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
It's binder time. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay.
Elena, let me just move this over so you don't find yourself falling. Much better.
At this point in my life, I affirm the following about my being Jewish. Really weird, but I really like it. You see, since my mother grew up Buddhist and converted to Judaism after I was born, I did not start my formal Jewish education until I was older. I did not start learning Hebrew until I was about 12 years old, when my mother completed her formal conversion to Judaism. I wasn't even considered Jewish like most people for most of my life, even though my father is Jewish. When I was younger, when my knowledge of Judaism was just Hanukkah, and I honestly think it was just Hanukkah. Judaism was pretty good. Making menorah paintings while the rest of my class made little trees, reading about holidays. My tiny worldview of Judaism was small, but it made sense. But after learning about Judaism, it was a lot more complex and bigger than what I thought it was. Judaism is weird. It's a religion where we praise a single God that is incomprehensible, like a Lovecraft character. We celebrate God by going rent-free for a week, building little houses, having costume parties, and by throwing an Arbor Day party without any Jewish context. That's pretty weird. But within all that weirdness is an entire culture full of humor, history, and hidden gems. I love Jewish humor. I looked up Jewish memes and found some funny stuff. One was a picture of a salamander all dressed up with little talit and yarmulke with a little oy vey sign and the poster wishing everyone a happy Rosh Hashanah. Also, sometimes silly situations can come from just being Jewish. In middle school, for history class, we had to do a project on a civilization from a textbook. Guess what was one of the options? Ancient Israel. It was a great project. Drew a Torah, wrote some Hebrew. It was a fun time. However, when I was drawing the 10 Commandment tablets, I was looking at the textbook, and it said, "You shall not commit adultery." Because I was 12, I did not know what adultery was. So me, surrounded by a bunch of little other kids, looked it up. On that day, I accidentally taught a bunch of kids what adultery was, and ended up just writing down, "No cheating." There's also a lot of things I tragically would not have found if I wasn't Jewish. I've spoken before about the heretic. I don't remember when exactly my parents bought it, but it was sometime in middle school. I remember trying to read it in 7th grade for the reading log, but decided to quit after reading a scene where one of the Jewish characters got raped. Eventually, I reread it in 2021 for a novel project. It became one of the best books I ever read. The book was dramatic, set in late 1300 Spain, in the dawn of the Spanish Inquisition, an era the books I read before about Judaism never discussed. The book was also critical religion, both Judaism and Christianity, playing the themes of proselytization and fanaticism. The book's subject of returning to Judaism intrigued me, and looking back, was a little like my own. At the ending of the book, wow, I remember barely finishing the book by the deadline and panically rewriting my entire speech I planned to give the class. The ending of the book had this effect on me. It is one of the few pieces of media that ever made me cry. The book, as mentioned before, went full circle with the Shema and themes of martyrdom, an event that blurred the lines between the real world and the hand of God. I ended up reciting the Shema in front of class that day. I probably wouldn't have given that book a chance if I wasn't Jewish, and I probably wouldn't even know it was a thing. Why did I go on a tangent about Spanish Jews? Well, because I'm one. Centuries ago, my ancestors were forcibly converted or forced to flee their homes due to the Spanish Inquisition. Generations went by, and they forgot their connections to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. But eventually, they returned. I returned. I wasn't born Jewish, but I don't think being born Jewish is the only way to be Jewish. Being born to a Jewish mother is one way. A Jew is also something you can become, or in my case, return to. You learn about its weird quirks, all its holidays, and its culture. Once you accept that culture as your own, then it means something too. The culture of 1,000 years, yet adapts to the modern day. The concept of one God that has 1,000 faces. It has many interpretations, but that's what makes it so wonderful. Discussion is what keeps things alive after all. To me, Judaism is a weird, wonderful religion and culture, a story full of joy and sorrow. And now, I too am part of that story. Thank you.
We read in the Torah, "You shall count off 7 weeks. Start to count the 7 weeks when the sickle is first put to the standing grain. Then you shall observe the feast of weeks for Adonai your God, offering your free will contribution according as Adonai your God has blessed you." This is this holiday, the holiday of Shavuot, the holiday of weeks, because we count off 7 full weeks, plus 1 more day just to make sure. It was an agricultural holiday, celebrating the early summer barley harvest, and would have gone by the wayside because our only obligation was to bring that barley harvest to the temple as an offering. When the temple was destroyed by Rome in the year 70, Judaism faced an existential threat unlike anything we have ever experienced. Even the Holocaust pales in comparison. Our life was centered around Jerusalem and what took place in the temple. Had not our sages, had not our rabbis found a creative way to radically transform Judaism, we would not be here. And that's what the Talmud is. It is a radical transformation of the Judaism of its day into a Judaism that can face a multitude of challenges and continue to grow and thrive. What begins as a barley harvest becomes now a connection to the giving of the Torah, thanks to the creativity of our rabbis, who may have been off a little bit on their counting, but you know what? We won't hold that against them. They had a saying, Im ein Torah ein kamach, im ein kamach ein Torah. Where there is no Torah, there is no flour. There is no F-L-O-U-R, flour. Where there's no flour, there's no Torah. What does Torah and flour have to do with each other? Well, Torah would represent education, spirituality, a spiritual life, morals, ethics, and flour, physical sustenance. Where there is no physical sustenance, there cannot be Torah. We cannot engage in a moral lifestyle. We cannot engage in a holiday celebration if we are starving. By the same token, if there is no Torah, if there is no ethical basis to our life, if there is no education, if there is no learning, there will not be any flour, any physical sustenance. And so with that one simple statement, the rabbis merge these two concepts. Shavuot, a barley harvest, and the giving of the Torah are integral in our lives. And so with that, we continue with our Torah service, as I invite us to turn in our prayer books to page 246. And as we turn to page 246, I invite us to rise as we are able.
Ki mitzion tetze Torah, Ki mitzion tetze Torah, Udevar Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Kadelul Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod, ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Lecha Adonai הממלכה למתנשא לכל לראש. השלושה דברים, השלושה דברים, שלושה דברים העולם עומד. השלושה דברים, השלושה דברים, שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. Never. Yeah. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael chai. 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 Od Avinu chai, Od Avinu chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu chai. Od Avinu chai, Od Avinu chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu chai.
We may be seated. This is yours, right? As I mentioned, our students will be reading from our orphan Torah, the Holocaust surviving Torah, this portion from the Ten Commandments, connecting us to the holiday of Shavuot, to our ancestors standing there at Mount Sinai. Ta'amod Rishon Yevarech ve'likore et haTorah kochava sheli bat Yosefa Esther V'tim. We invite for our first Aliyah and our first Torah reading, Hannah Green. Can't hold that one. Okay, there's your yad. And we're going to start here, there on first, our blessing.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. I should note that Hannah is using a yad that was presented to her for her bat mitzvah.
Okay, where am I?
Okay.
Vayadaber Elohim et kol hadvarim ha'elech. Lemor Anohi Adonai Elohecha, Asher Choteticha Ma'eretz Mitzrayim, Mi Beit Avadim Lo Yihye Lecha, Elohim Acherim Al Panaim, Lo Ta'aseh Lecha, Fesel V'chol Temuna, Asher Bashamayim, Mima'al V'asher Ba'aretz, Mitachat V'asher B'mayim, Mitachat La'aretz, Lo Tishtachaveh Lechem, Velo ta'ovdem ki Anohi Adonai Elohecha. El kana po oked avon avot al benim al shiloshim ve'al rebeim lesonaim. Ve'oseh chesed le'alefim. Lo L'ochavai ul shamrei mitzvotai, lo tisa et shamrei shem. Adonai Elohecha l'shav ki lo yinakeh Adonai et asher yisach et shomo l'shav.
Wonderful, excellent. And God spoke all of these words, saying, I am the Eternal One, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. You will not have any other gods before me. You will not make any kind of an image or any kind of a statue of anything that is in the heavens above the earth, or anything that is on the earth or below the earth. That which is in the that which is in the water underneath the earth. You will not bow down to them. You will not worship them, because I, the Eternal One, am your God. I am a jealous God who visits the sins of the children upon the ancestors, even until the 4th generation. Ooh, this is harsh stuff. To those who hate me, but I will engage in acts of kindness and mercy, even to the 1000th generation for those who love me and observe my mitzvot. Do not swear falsely by the name of your God. I will not make anyone clean or pure who does so.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. No, you did great. You did great. Ta'amod Shenit, Esther bat Yitzchak Beryl Visara LaTorah. We invite Lila Fenton Strauss for our second reader and Torah blesser for the reading of the Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. By the way, I invite any of you to read the Torah while Lila and Hannah, you can see the text right there so you can join with her.
Zachor et yom hashabat lekodsho shashet yamayim ta'avod va'asita kol malachtecha bayom hashavi'i shabbat la'adonai elohecha lo ta'aseh kol malacha ata uvinicha uvitecha avdecha va'amtecha v'hemtecha v'gerecha asher b'shiarecha ki shashet yamayim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'eretz et hayam ve'et kol asher bam v'inach bayom hashavi'i al kain barech Adonai et yom hashabat v'kadshehu kabed et avicha ve'et imecha lama'an yerichun yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach.
Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For 6 days you shall do all of your work, and on the 7th day it will be a Shabbat to the Eternal One your God. You will not do any of your work, you, your sons, your daughters, your servants, your male servants, your female servants, your cattle, even the stranger who dwells in your gates. For in 6 days the Eternal One made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day, heaven and earth and the seas, and all that was in them. And on the 7th day God rested and was refreshed. Therefore, God blessed the 7th day and made it holy. Honor your father and mother, that your days will be long upon the land that the Eternal One is giving to you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amod Shlishit, Esther bat David Vidara LaTorah. We invite for our third Torah blessing and reading Elena Sinfuegos.
Okay, now I go out.
Now you can come up. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, Venatan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai, no, Torah.
Amen.
That all the way up here at the very top. There we go.
Lo tirsak, lo tinaf, lo tigno, lo tane, aid shake, lo tamod, beid re'eha, lo tamod, aishet re'eha, Abdo, Vemoroto, Vesoro, Ve'amoro, Yo Asher, Lameha, Veko Ha'am, Re'im, Et Hapidim, O Hadolot, Ve'et Hapidim, Ve'et Kol, Ashor. Har ve'et ha'ar v'ashim ve'yar ha'am ve'yadu ashanu modrazenu.
Okay. Good job. It's okay.
Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayehalam asher Eloheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Absolutely.
And just to make a quick comment that Elena's just become bat mitzvah, so she's got a lot of extra hard work here.
She's had to learn 2 Torah portions in 1 week. Lo tirtzach, do not murder, do not steal, do not go about as a false witness against your neighbor. And the very commandment you spoke about when you were 12 years old, do not, don't commit adultery. Yes, that's in here. Do not commit adultery. You know what that was. Don't cheat. Good definition. Do not covet your neighbor's house or anything at all that belongs to your neighbor. And all of the people saw the sounds and the mighty deeds and the voice of the shofar and the mountain engaged in smoke. And the people were very much afraid, and they stood from afar. Yesher kochek. Nicely done. I invite us to rise as we are able, as we hold the Torah high for all to see. And I invite Alyssa Hess, our teacher, both in Hebrew Lab and religious school, to join us to hold the Torah.
Yisrael, Ki Adonai, B'yad Moshe. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Phew.
Thank you for the rescue. We may be seated. The Haftarah for the holiday of Shavuot comes from the book of Ruth. The book of Ruth is set also at a period of time when Ruth and her mother-in-law Naomi return. They return at the barley harvest. They return on the holiday of Shavuot. And so our students will lead us in the reading of our Haftarah. Oh, I am so, absolutely. My goodness, thank you. We want to take this moment, of course, when reading the Torah, we want to engage as many people as we can. We know that many here are here. We know that many are joining us on YouTube. We hope that all of us are well and healthy. We know that many of us are facing challenges to our health and to our well-being. And so it is important, while our Torah is in our midst, we share the Mishaberach. But first, an introduction.
The prayer for recovery and healing is an essential aspect of every Jewish worship service. The Mishaberach gets its name from two words, mi and sheberach, combined meaning the one who blessed. The first line of the prayer translates to, may the one who blessed our mothers, the source of blessing for our fathers. It is known from our history that God has blessed and strengthened our ancestors, allowing us to ask God for the same compassion and healing that was so willingly given to them. The purpose of this prayer is to restore peace, hope, and health, not only to the physical being, but to the spiritual being for the individual it is being said for. It aims to extend past the worship service and include anyone in need of refuah shlema, regardless of religious beliefs. During this time in my life, I've been able to personally connect to this prayer. I've dealt with some personal issues that have taken a toll on my mental, physical, and emotional health. The Mishaberach has given me the opportunity to ask God for the strength, empathy, and healing that I need to overcome these difficult times. So, I encourage you to do the same tonight and connect yourself or a loved one to our community, whether it be silently or aloud during the dedicated interludes.
The words to our Mishaberach can be found on page 253.
Sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Chanalea B'Chayasura, Julian Ben Ada. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Yes, we'll do the blessing before.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav v'tivrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Elohei b'Torah u'Moshe ato u'Yisrael amo u'V'yei ha'emet b'tzedek.
In the days when judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah, with his wife and 2 sons, went to reside in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. They and their 2 sons came to the country of Moab and remained there. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left, and her 2 sons. Her sons married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth, and they lived there about 10 years. Then the sons of Naomi died, so the woman was left without her 2 sons and without her husband. She started out with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab. For in the country of Moab, she heard that God had taken note of the people and given them food, accompanied by her 2 daughters-in-law. She left the place where she had been living, and they set out on the road back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Turn back, each of you to her mother's house. May the Eternal One deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May God find you each. May God grant each of you that each of you find security in the house of a husband." And she kissed them farewell.
They broke into weeping and said to her, "No, we will return with you to our people." But Naomi replied, "Turn back, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have you any more sons in my body who might be husbands for you? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I were married tonight, and I also bore sons, should you wait for them to grow up? Should you, on their account, debar yourselves from marriage? Oh no, my daughters. My lot is far more bitter than yours, for the hand of the eternal God has struck out against me." They broke into weeping again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law farewell, but Ruth clung to her. And Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-laws have returned to your people and to her gods. You go as well, follow after your sister-in-law." But Ruth replied, "Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you.
For wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Thus and more may God do to me if anything but death parts me from you." When Naomi saw how determined she was to go with her, she ceased to argue with her, and the 2 went on until they reached Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole city buzzed with excitement over them. The woman said, "Can this be Naomi?" She said to them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for Shaddai has made my lot very bitter. I went away full, and the Holy One has brought me back empty. How can you call me Naomi when the eternal God has dealt harshly with me, when Shaddai has brought misfortune upon me?" Thus Naomi returned from the country of Moab. She returned with her daughter-in-law Ruth the Moabite. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest.
Ruth's statement, "Do not dissuade me to follow after you. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God," is actually the basis of the rabbis creating the conversion ceremony. Ruth is our first official convert in Judaism, and that statement is what motivates the rabbis to create the conversion ceremony, what is required of someone who wishes to become a Jew. As our confirmands stand here this evening, that statement is also applicable to them. Wherever you go, I will go. They have adopted the ways of the Jewish people. Your God shall be my God. Wherever you lodge, I lodge. The way that we live, as you've heard in their speeches, Judaism is more than just a religion. It's a way of life. And so wherever you lodge, I will lodge. And so as we close that book, that first chapter of the book of Ruth with those statements, we celebrate not only Ruth's journey to Judaism, but we celebrate our confirmand's journey to becoming Jewish adults in our congregation. Cantor will lead us in the blessing after the Haftarah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh ha'mdaber u'mkayim shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nviim ve'al yom chag ha'shavot hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu lisason v'lisimcha lechavod ultifaret על כל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד ימוך לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש ישראל והזמנים.
We all say amen. Amen. It has been such an honor and a pleasure for me to work with these students this year in confirmation. We tried to get to Washington, D.C., but they are all invited to go when we go in December. But with that absence in our curriculum, I was nevertheless impressed with our students' ability to comprehend the complexities, the weirdness, if I might quote Elena, of Judaism, and more importantly, to embrace and just engage in the questioning about what does all of this mean now to a 16-year-old. It's been a fascinating journey, and as you heard, their connection to Judaism runs the gamut. On the one hand, it is a spiritual connection with a creator God in some fashion, a spiritual life that calls us to live our life on a moral playing field, to live a life based on ethics, to live a life that is searching for new meanings. You heard that it was about a connection not only to the Creator, but a connection to our past, to family history. I had a history professor begin his first lecture with us by saying, Jews do not have history. We all sat there. Jews do not have history, he said. Jews have memory. We have taken history and we have personalized it. We have taken the past and made it part of who we are. Thus, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. What better way to teach history to people who don't have a concept of chronology than to make it a personal experience? And for some of our confirmands, that is very much part of their connection to Judaism. And you heard about Judaism as being something that you are born into, but something you can also become and something you can reclaim. What an interesting journey the Cienfuegos family have had throughout their history to now be here with us, for which we are grateful. Indeed, what an interesting history and journey all of our confirmands and their families have had, from common roots in Ohio, in Cincinnati, to here in Southern California, to Canada, to all kinds of places. These connections are not only what hold us together as a people, but it is what has supported and sustained our confirmands on their journey and will continue to support them in the future. It's wonderful to be able to be with these students tonight, to celebrate with their families their accomplishment, and like Havdalah, have a little bittersweetness with this ceremony. For this is the end of our opportunity to formally educate you. And as we were talking in my office before we began, now it's up to you. It's up to you, Elena, Lila, and Hannah. It's up to you what you do with this connection to Judaism. It's up to you what you do with the history, the linkage that you now are very much a part of. It is my hope that it will continue, obviously. And as you go off to college, you will find Jews and Jewish organizations, Hillel, hopefully participate in Birthright, Free Trip to Israel, an opportunity to see the land of our origins and to be there. What a great opportunity you all have before you. I did not have Birthright when I was growing up. Most of us did not have that opportunity. And so Judaism has so much to offer, and I hope you will take advantage of all of that. I ask that the congregation remain seated for a moment. I'm going to open the ark, but we're going to have a private blessing with our confirmands before we conclude our service. On second thought, hold on, sorry, Ray. We need to put the Torah away.
Yes, we do.
Yes, I almost had a hernia, so lifting up the Torah. So it's time we put it away appropriately. So with that, I will invite us all to rise as we are able, as we return the Torah to the ark.
עודו על ארץ ושמיים וירם קרן לעמו תהילה לכל חסידיו לבני ישראל עם קרובו עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
We may be seated as I continue with a quiet, private blessing with each of our confirmands. Confirmands, in addition, we have a number of things for you. We have, of course, your confirmation certificate from the temple, but you also have from the temple a 10-year membership at Temple Beth Or. You are now members of this congregation. This is your home, and you are part of us, and we are part of you. And so for the next 10 years, you can tell anyone you meet, you are a member in your own right of Temple Beth Or. From our sisterhood, Leslie Berger, we have for each of you a mezuzah necklace that you will be able to wear, carrying the words of our tradition with you. And from the Education Committee, you each get a tzedakah box so that you will be able to set aside more of what you have to be able to share that with those who are less fortunate. And from myself, a book entitled, I Am a Jew. It's based on the final words of Daniel Pearl, who was murdered because he was a Jew. Those words inspired a lot of Jews, Jewish leaders, Jewish women, men, rabbis, scholars, authors, cooks, bottle washers, housewives, to write what it means to them to be Jewish, just as you have written. Notice I'm giving this to you after you've written yours, so that way you now have yours, and you can go see what others had to say too. And so all of those items we have for you, but we have one more, and that is the gift of song. With the help of our Cantor, a special blessing and a song just for you.
In the garden there's a tree planted by someone who only imagined me. What love, what vision. I marvel at the gift. No fruit could be sweeter than this. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. As my people went from land to land, something passed from hand to hand, and it isn't just the words and stories of the ancient laws or gold and glories. It's the way we study, the book we study. It's the way we study, the way. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. Today's life is full of choice, because a young man raised his voice, because a young girl took a chance. I am freedom's inheritance. Years ago they crossed the sea, and they made a life that's come to me. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. So in the garden, plant a seed, a tree of life for you and me. The fruit will ripen in the sun. The words will sound when I am gone. These are the things I pass along. The fruit, the book, and the song. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I'm standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. Mazel tov.
We move to the conclusion of our worship service with the words of the adoration. I invite us to rise as we are able for the Aleinu.
Aleinu לשבח לדון הכל, לתת קדמה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו
As we come to the end of our service, we are aware of the generations who are not standing physically with us, those that live on in our hearts and our memories. We keep them all with us. As Hannah Senesh wrote, there are stars who shine in the nighttime sky, whose light reaches us only long after the star has ceased to exist. And it is those very lights that guide us. Just as there are people in our lives who share our physical world no more, nonetheless the light of their memory continues to shine and to guide us. We share together the words of our Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'izkari v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shemed Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Ulalmei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitroma, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, Shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We conclude our service with, again, sort of another blessing, but a song for our confirmands, Lechi Lach. May they and we continue to a place of blessing. I invite you to put your arms around the shoulder of someone next to you, hold the hands of someone who needs to remain seated as we share for ourselves a link of blessing for this holiday and the week ahead.
Lechi lach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. Lechi lach. And I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi lach, to the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi lach. And you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. And you shall be a blessing. Lechi lach.
We will share the motzi and have an opportunity to then join together, gathering with our confirmands for a delicious oneg.
With our virtual challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Chag Shavuot Sameach, happy Shavuot, and Mazel Tov to our confirmands. Yeah, absolutely.